Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Tensions have risen between Pakistan and India after a false flag operation by India in Pahalgam in the Anantnag district of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir was exposed. And Pakistan in its National Security Committee meeting has decided to take some tough countermeasures in response to India's unilateral and aggressive measures towards Pakistan without any concrete evidence or a solid proof as it was alleging Pakistan with this particular attack in Pahalgam. Pakistan's National Security Committee has termed Indian measures as unilateral, unjust, politically motivated, extremely irresponsible and devoid of any legal merit. The National Security Committee has made certain observations and also has decided to take some measures. The National Security Committee meeting was chaired, of course, by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and it said, let me quote a couple of very important excerpts from it as well, from the statement by the Prime Minister's office. Quote, in the absence of any credible investigation and verifiable evidence, attempts to link the Pahalgam attack with Pakistan are frivolous, devoid of rationality. Any threat to Pakistan's sovereignty and to the security of its people will be met with firm reciprocal measures in all domains. Pakistan vehemently rejects the Indian announcement to hold the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. Any attempt to stop or divert the flow of water belonging to Pakistan as per the Indus Water Treaty and the usurpation of the rights of lower riparian would be considered as an act of war and responded with full force across the complete spectrum of national power. This particular statement also talks about the major observations which have been made during this National Security Committee meeting, which relate to the disputed nature of Indian illegally occupied Kashmir. Also, Pakistan unequivocally condemning terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. Also, talking about India's worn-out narrative of victimhood, Pakistan having in its custody the irrefutable proof of India's sponsored terrorism in Pakistan, and the case of Kulbhushan Yadav, also urging upon the international community which ought to remain mindful of India's state-sponsored extraterritorial assassination or attempts on the foreign soil. It has also taken some important decisions which include Pakistan shall exercise the right to hold all the bilateral agreements with India, including but not limited to a similar agreement, in abeyance till India desists from its manifested behavior of fomenting terrorism inside Pakistan, transnational killings and non-adherence to international law and the United Nations resolutions on Kashmir. Pakistan shall close down the Wagah border post with immediate effect. Those who have crossed with valid endorsements may return through that route immediately, but not later than 30th of April 2025. Pakistan has also suspended all the visas under SAARC visa exemption scheme issued to Indian nationals and deems them cancelled with immediate effect with the exception of Sikh religious pilgrims. Pakistan declares the Indian defense, naval and air advisors in Islamabad persona non grata. They are also directed to leave Pakistan immediately, but not later than 30th of April 2025. The strength of Indian High Commission in Islamabad will be reduced to 30 diplomats and staff members with effect from 30th of April 2025. And Pakistan's airspace will be closed with immediate effect for all the Indian-owned or Indian-operated airlines. All trade with India, including to and from any third country through Pakistan, is suspended forthwith. The National Security Committee underscored that Pakistan and its armed forces remain fully capable and prepared to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity against any misadventure, as clearly demonstrated by its measured yet resolute response to India's reckless incursion in February 2019. Also, after this particular National Security Committee meeting, a number of federal ministers held a joint presser, including the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar. Defense Minister, Mr. Khaja Mohammad Asif, the Law Minister, the Information Minister, as well as Attorney General of Pakistan, raising and highlighting some important points in that presser, which we will be also taking up for discussion during the course of our conversation in today's show. For that, we are honored to be in the studio by Mr. Air Commodore, retired Basit Raza Abbasi, Senior Analyst. Mr. Abbasi, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Waqas Kausar, Indian Affairs expert. Dr. Kausar, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Abbasi, there is no solid proof, there is no concrete evidence, and this is a pattern on the part of the Indian authorities. Whenever such incident happens within India or Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, without any concrete evidence, Indian authorities start pointing fingers, and that particular pattern is also developed that Indian media also tries to create that particular war hysteria without any credible evidence, start pointing fingers towards Pakistan. What's the reason at the core of it?
The only reason is that Indian government and their actions have generally been illegitimate. This I am specifically talking in respect to Kashmir. And to legitimize, they have to look for some excuse. And this particular incident which took place, I think it's a sort of insult to their security agencies that this could take place in a place where about 8 to 9 million
highly militarized zone.
Highly militarized zone. So if despite all those measures, all those coercive measures and brutal actions they have been taking for all these 6-7 decades, the Kashmiri population, the Kashmiris, they have not changed their heart. Whatever they have tried, they have coerced them, they have tried to bribe them, they have tried everything, but it has not worked. Kashmiris are very firm that Kashmir is a part of Pakistan and it's not a part of India. And today I was remembering Syed Ali Gilani Saab, that he stood resolute. He didn't even get Indian passport because he said that I am not an Indian. And it was only under extenuating circumstances because he had to go for Hajj that he got it. So now at the present, I think this was in the making, because for last 2-3 years, India has been demanding, they have requested Pakistan under the Indus Water Treaty Agreement that they want to sort of alter it. And this is as per the agreement, that if both the parties agreed on to something, then that change can take place. But nothing can be done unilaterally. That's why India had been requesting us, because they want to actually grab more share of the waters, because they need it for their large population. But unfortunately, these days, there is no, in the world politics, there are alliances and groupings. And if you belong to a certain group, you are allowed to go ahead and do illegal and immoral acts. And there's confirmed proof. Now here in this case, there's no proof that Pakistan is involved in it, and yet India blamed for it. And on the other hand, look at it, that there's a concrete proof in Canada that Indian state sponsored terrorism. In England, in USA, and in Pakistan it keeps happening. BLAs and TTPs are all sponsored by them. Despite all these clear-cut evidences, world has really not taken any action against India. And this is what has encouraged them to keep repeating these things. This is one aspect of the picture. And the second thing is, this mantra, anti-Pakistan mantra, has been so successful. The 3 BJP tenures are actually based on these such tactics. But I think they have learnt a lesson. Then 2019, when they tried to do something, they tried to sort of act their words, they got a lesson. And if they tried something now, which I feel they might try, all this preparation is to sort of do something, some other incursion to actually square up where they got insulted last time. And I think they'll get a bigger insult this time, inshallah, if they try to do that.
A number of very important points highlighted. I'll come back to you, Commodore Abbasi, to talk with you separately on each of those points. Dr. Kausar, when we talk about the presentation of concrete evidence, Mr. Ishaq Dar, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Pakistan, in his presser after the National Security Committee meeting, has also challenged India, if it has got any concrete evidence, it should present us with that particular evidence, also tell the world that this evidence is present. On the contrary, what we see is Pakistan has that very irrefutable evidence, particularly when we talk about the very classical case of Kulbhushan Yadav, who confessed to his espionage and sabotage activities. And also, if you remember, the very important presser made by the former Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, Mr. Syed Qazi, of how India and its intelligence agency was perpetrating extraterritorial and extrajudicial killings. Then there is evidence when we talk about the cases in Canada as well as on the US soil. Now, when they don't have any evidence, how can they simply point fingers at a certain country? Is there any mechanism when we talk about a behavior of a certain nation state accusing the other without any credible evidence? Is there any mechanism to address that?
Thank you, first of all, for having me on your show. I mean, it's a very legitimate question that has been raised in that presser about providing the evidence of such incident. I mean, Pakistan, civil society, people everywhere. I mean, act of terrorism anywhere, everywhere should be condemned. But I guess we need to see the larger picture of the things. Because the moment this incident happened, what unfolded was something very, I mean, it is something deja vu that within few hours, the BJP and particularly the media and the way they have created and made an environment which is very hostile towards Pakistan particularly, and then the way the warmongering and all these things started up. I mean, this is something, it's not new of course, but this is something which is, I guess we have seen already. Particularly in this context, what we need to see is that BJP particularly as a political party, I mean, how did it respond in past and now how is it has responded now? I mean, as a government, you have two options. One is, of course, you have to look inward and try to see that how you can hold your own people accountable of this act. Of course, we need to see one thing. We shouldn't forget the context. Kashmir is a very complex conflict. It's a disputed region. So you have the tourism over there. That's one thing. You're bringing in the people. But of course, the larger picture shouldn't be forgotten. It has a history of I mean, it's not only about 22 people, but it's all about the people those have been killed since long. I guess it's more than 100,000 people who have, you know, lost their lives during this entire thing. What we need to understand is that once you have such complex conflicts and disputed region, you cannot generalize all these things. I mean, coming up with these points within few hours without providing particularly evidence, it means it's something you had that in your mind and you're just trying to, you know, politically take the advantage of such situation. I mean, as a political party, of course, you always have few things, like one that you go for internal accountability, and other you put the blame on others, and then you try to bring that situation, you know, into your political favor. I mean, particularly the situation, the things which we are receiving from their media, it's not encouraging. I mean, the way they are trying to build an environment of hostility and then putting blame on the Pakistan, particularly of this incident, and within 24 hours without any investigation. I guess this is something which is very worrying. Second, we also need to see that, I mean, the way what has been, you know, things have been unfolding in the region. They have to look situation in a more, I mean, it has different dimensions, particularly when it comes to the Kashmir. It was never a normal region, particularly when you talk about the disputed region. You have to understand the dynamics of the situation. I mean, you don't have that sources of information over there. It's not a, we don't say that it's a very open society in a way that you have the freedom of expression and all these things. So I guess this is on the one part, there was a need that you can you know, start talking to each other and then, you know, come up with certain evidences and then try to figure out that how these shared concerns could be addressed. But on the other side, if you go for these blame games, you know, and this has been very sadly, we have seen from the BJP in the past as well, that they are trying to convert their internal political the issues, security lapses, into their political gains. And I guess this is a dilemma of populist parties everywhere. They try to, you know, this divides internal population. I mean, you have seen the people, the way the internal division have come up. Media is pointing fingers on particularly a community, particularly Muslim community, and then within the Kashmiri community and all that. I guess this entire situation is very sad. We need to see that. I guess this entire attitude, I mean, of then coming up with such decisions of, you know, breaking the water. I mean, you have a technical treaty you also it becomes the victim of your political ambitions. That has to be.
So one aspect you already talked about. I'll come to this particular aspect of the Indus Water Treaty, and there is clearly no provision within that treaty of any sort of suspension that could happen. And if there is any sort of a modification, as Commodore Abbasi has also alluded to, if that is also required, that can't be done unilaterally. A bilateral agreement in that particular regard is very necessary. Taking the political advantage, we've seen recently the elections happening in India, and Bharatiya Janata Party also tried to use that very anti-Pakistan narrative in that particular election campaign also. But it did not work out. With this humongous false flag operation, the similarity of it, which has on many dimensions as far as Pulwama false flag operation was also concerned, what could be the possible motive behind this one at this particular point in time?
See, I mean, there could be many points, but fundamentally what I personally think is that, of course, the populist parties, I mean, you have seen in past that there were many parties who were talking about the internal sort of accountability during such incidents. But of course, when you have that political party with such populist narrative, the fundamental problem is that you have to keep that constituency alive. You have to, come up with certain sort of political and all these divisive politics, particularly in that.
But if it hasn't worked recently, in the case of those elections.
It didn't work. I'm not saying even if it works in future as well. But that's the problem, that you build a constituency which is very difficult to, you have to hold that constituency, you have to keep that constituency intact. The sad part is that, I mean, that the likes what you talk about Indus Water Treaty and other things, I mean, this was something also talked in 2016 as well, and then later as well, that they have to, they were trying to negotiate and trying to tell that we want to come out of that. I mean, this is something we need to see, that what is the major agenda behind that. I mean, this is something very well thought out treaty, that Pakistan as a lower riparian has its own rights. But I guess this becomes the larger agenda of politics, where you try to dominate based on your economy, where you try to, I mean, once you have a political party at the government, it depends what are its rules, what are its value systems. But if it is strongly anchored in divisive politics and dividing communities, I mean, you have very recently seen the Waqf bill and all these things. I mean, these all are not encouraging in a pluralistic society. So I personally think that such adventurous politics could have a huge impact on the regional peace and stability. Any such I guess any such incident of, I mean, where people are losing, innocent people are losing their lives, I mean, there could be many mechanisms. You can ask for the support, you can talk about these things, you can develop certain mechanisms. But such a very knee-jerk reaction, that it means you are sort of it is something which was well prepared and sort of with malified intentions. This is not encouraging.
So that knee-jerk reaction and coming up with such measures shows that it was already pre-planned. And also, when we specifically talk about, there is a statement by one of the leaders of Six for Justice movement, who has himself been in line of that particular extrajudicial, extraterritorial and state sponsorship of terrorism on the part of Indian intelligence. Hero Gurpatwant Singh Pinu, he's also categorically talked about this particular Pahalgam incident as one of the pre-planned, typically coinciding with the visit of US President, Vice President Mr. J.D. Vance here. I'll come back to you. I'll have to take a very quick short break over here. After the break, we'll the discussion from here. For that, stay tuned. Welcome back to Views on News. In today's program, we are talking about the rising tensions between Pakistan and India after that Pahalgam false flag operation on from the Indian side badly exposed. India taking unilateral aggressive measures, to which Pakistani authorities have come up with tough countermeasures. And we are honored to be joined in the studio by Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar and Air Commodore retired Basit Raza Abbasi. On the phone line, we are honored to be joined now by Mr. Zamir Akram, former ambassador. Mr. Akram, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show show tonight. Really appreciate that. How are you looking at this particular situation unfolding between Pakistan and India, with kind of very aggressive and unilateral measures undertaken by the Indian authorities without any concrete proof, as it alleged Pakistan linked Pakistan with that particular attack that happened in Pahalgam?
Well, this is typically the kind of policies that the Indians follow. Every time there is some kind of an incident, they blame it on Pakistan. It's kind of a knee-jerk reaction without providing any proof, without even conducting any investigation into these issues. So I'm not surprised that the Indians have accused us. I was sure that they would, and then they have. But this is completely a hollow accusation, because as in the past, they have not provided any evidence whatsoever, and I'm quite sure that there isn't any evidence. They can cook it up. Sometimes they do that as well. But we should be prepared for the kind of attitude that the Indians are demonstrating. I'm concerned that they may even be foolish enough to try and use force. But if they do, then they should know, as we have demonstrated in the past, that we will respond. They have also taken this step of holding the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, which is a violation of their international commitments, and it demonstrates the kind of respect that India has, or lack of respect that India has, for international agreements and commitments, just as it has demonstrated with regard to the UN resolutions on Kashmir. So we need to hang tough. We need to respond with firmness, and we need to convey a message to the Indians that we will not back down, and we will stand up to their bullying tactics. These kind of tactics will not work with Pakistan.
Okay, so the decisions which have been made in the National Security Committee meeting, do you think this message has been conveyed to the Indian side loud and clear?
I think so, absolutely, that this is a message. This is the minimum that we should have done, and we have done it. And this message is obviously gone loud and clear. It shows that Pakistan is not going to sue for peace or try and ask for some kind of way to find a way out of or resolve this thing. It's up to the Indians. They created this situation in the first place, like you said, this false flag operation, and now it's up to them to de-escalate if they want to. If they don't want to de-escalate, then obviously then we are ready and capable of dealing with their policy.
So, Mr. Akram, when we talk about this particular Indus Water Treaty in particular, there is no clear provision within that treaty of a unilateral suspension or suspension at all. So, what could be the possible mechanisms under which Pakistan could actually get the redressal of this particular issue if India goes ahead with this particular plan?
Well, there are various international legal options that we can utilize. I think we can also take this up in the UN Security Council, because ultimately this water issue leads to a peace and security issue in the region. So there are various multilateral mechanisms. There's the International Court of Justice. We can use all of these. However, I want to also emphasize that the Indians, having taken this step, really cannot do anything about it. They cannot, and I want to repeat, they cannot stop the flow of water into our rivers. Where is it going to go? Where is the topography is such, the terrain is such, the water has to flow down. And if they want to store it, it will flood their their side of occupied Kashmir. So there is no option for them but to allow the flow of the water to take place. So there are people in Pakistan, I want to tell them that there is no way that the water flow into Pakistan can be stopped. Only if they build a dam or dams on these rivers can they stop it. And if it comes to that, then of course we have the option of taking action against any kind of construction that will deny us our due share of Indus waters.
going to manifest in the form of knocking the doors of International Court of Arbitration, or some other action could be taken in that regard also?
We should try everything. We have tried arbitration. We should continue to try arbitration. We should ask the World Bank to intercede, because the Indus Water Treaty is a treaty that was negotiated in the auspices of the World Bank. So we should ask the World Bank to intercede. As I said, we should ask the UN to intercede, the ICJ. In the issue with other kinds of arbitration, the arbitration requires both parties to agree to an arbitration mechanism. Indians will obviously not agree to that arbitration mechanism. So we have to use other methods and other avenues that we can do on our own unilaterally.
Okay, Mr. Akram, don't you think it's a very interesting scenario here when we talk about, as on one side India had decided to put this in the water treaty in abeyance, but when we talk about, as Foreign Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Ishaq Dar, in his presser has said that the démarche which was presented to the Charge d'Affaires of Pakistani Commission in India, there was everything except the mention of Indus Water Treaty. Isn't that interesting?
That is very interesting. I did not know this, but if that is the case, then it's probably something that they had second thoughts about. I can't be sure about it because it's the foreign minister who said it. He's obviously in a better position to know. But in this statement that I heard from the Indian spokesperson of the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, he definitely mentioned this thing about the Indus Water Treaty.
Right. Mr. Zamir Akram, thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. From Abbasi joining us on the phone line. Mr. Abbasi, this Indus Water Treaty, what sort of Pakistan options does Pakistan have if India continues with this? And also your remarks regarding this. During today's press, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has said in that démarche there was everything that they had decided. Interestingly, it does not mention the IWT, and on one side they have put that treaty in abeyance.
This actually shows a lack of cohesion and a bit of I mean, if I sum it up, it's a total lack of statesmanship, because the actions which have been taken are, I mean, they're untoward, and I mean, their knee-jerk is a very light word for that. And I personally think that Pakistan has a lot of options. World Bank, because that's they are the signatory and the mediator in this. So the Court of Arbitration and other Court of Justice, those options are there. And Mr. Ishaq Dar also said in his press conference, and rightly so, that Pakistan is now a non-permanent member of Security Council, and the matter can be taken up in Security Council as well. So apart from that, this tit-for-tat response is a measure in itself, because I am especially one step is very potent. And that is the blockage of the airspace for the Indian owned aircraft, Indian owned and Indian operated aircraft, because that would immediately have an impact. Whatever rest is, they are merely academic and diplomatic in nature.
I'll come to this particular. I want your detailed analysis regarding as to the issue of airspace. When we specifically talk about this Indus Water Treaty, so Pakistan having these number of options, can India be in any sort of a position to stop the flow of the water?
Legally speaking, no, but illegally, if they want, they will have to build dams, because there's one is rhetoric and one is the practical side of it. Now, if they want to stop the water, they have to build that much dams, and as the ambassador pointed out, that I mean, that could even flood India itself, because when the snow starts melting, there's additional water, and that has to discharge, otherwise it will flood the whole Indian area, the basin of those rivers. So I mean, immediately this is what, that's why I pointed out the aerospace part, because that can have an immediate impact. Rest of the things, they have no immediate impact. They reduced their staff to Basit 30. We also did that. They sort of expelled our defense attachés. We did that. So all these are tit for tat and more of an academic and sort of visual aspects. But the hardcore hitting thing from both sides at the moment is only the airspace.
Pakistan's airspace will be closed with immediate effect for all the Indian-owned or Indian-operated airlines. What sort of, to what scale that impact is going to be on India?
Actually, aviation is a very difficult business, and you have to save every penny. You have to take the shortest possible routes. And fortunately for Pakistan and very unfortunately for India, there all the westbound flights, this is the shortest route going through Pakistan, and they do. And if they have to take a longer route, then it will be very difficult for their aviation industry to maintain their balance, budget balance, because already it's very difficult.
So at the end of the day, who is going to bear the cost of it?
Oh, the Indian diaspora who travels a lot, and they are very sort of, they operate on very tight budget. And what does the airline, what can airline do? They have to increase the price. If they increase the price, probably the diaspora would cry, and there will be internal upheaval in India, because there are so many, there are very large population who are outside, and they are actually a major contributor to the Indian economy as well. So all these things are going to impact, and that is why I see that these kind of, this situation has occurred before also, but it didn't last long, because 3-4 months Indians realized that they have had enough. Because how long can you keep funding your airlines? How can you pumping your taxpayers' money into the sustaining your airline? So that is a very good and important step. And I think let me also, I don't know how much time we have left.
Please go ahead.
I want to quote two, although Mr. Modi is not a very quotable person, but I remember two quotes. When there was this Pulwama attack, and they sort of did that incursion in Balakot, they violated Pakistani airspace, and in our response, we never violated their airspace. Whatever we did from within our borders. So that shows that how peaceful and how abiding we are to the illegal covenants and treaties and all those things. And second thing is that at that time, when this the pilot was shot down here and all that happened, then Mr. Modi very remorsefully commented that if we had Rafales today, things would have been different. Now he has the Rafales, but I think that will not make a difference, because Pakistan Air Force has always operated. It's all the wars, all the air wars which take place, for that matter even other battles, it's a man-machine interface. And sometimes we lack something on the machines. This time we don't lack that also, but our pilots are, that human capital is far ahead.
And
so
superior.
That should give us some sort of
better skilled.
Exactly. And that has been, it's not a sort of mere statement. It has been proven time and again that against heavy odds, Pakistan Air Force has always come up to the nation's expectations and has performed very well. And that performance has actually won respect for our Air Force all over the world.
Dr. Kausar, no mention in that démarche to the charge d'affaires of Pakistan by the Indian side. On one side, it has also put that treaty into abeyance. What does that depict?
See, also said initially as a message, also mentioned that of course you need an infrastructure to bring that, abeyance thing into practice. I mean, you need a lot of infrastructure to do that. Something, I guess this is symbolic also, in a way that you are trying to give a message that, because the lifeline of Pakistan, particularly economy and agriculture and all that, depends on those particular rivers. And I guess today's statement
but do
also.
you think that if India goes ahead with this particular move, it's going to set a precedent?
That's what I'm saying.
When we talk about India's dependence,
so it's
being the lower riparian.
Because in many cases, in the other cases, the river like Brahmaputra, the Tibet and other, I mean, it can provide, it can open a new sort of debate that if you can do that, there could be reciprocal measures from the other countries. But besides that, I guess the message we need to understand that if you are trying to, you are bringing that into abeyance, abeyance mean that you're trying to target the lifeline of a country, particularly the agriculture. And today's statement particularly tells about that it's equal to like an act of war. So I guess
that is exactly the point where I was coming. Considering this as an act of war,
I mean,
so Pakistan is going to respond with full force across the complete spectrum of the national power. What does that mean?
so that's what I want to say, that I mean it's almost challenging the very existence of a country. When you talk about the economy, you know, the provision of the water and the agriculture thing and the provision of the water particularly. I mean, this treaty sustained many wars and the war-like situations in past. So I personally think that you know, over the period of time, the way the conflict infrastructure developed within the BJP regime and in the Indian government, particularly in the society. Right now, if you see that the way the media, the other section of the society that you know, the way they're speaking and trying to create a war-like situation, sometimes you become hostage to that infrastructure as well, because there's a lot of demand, you know, trying to push the governments, and you know, it's like a war situation, you're going to do it tomorrow. So I guess the parties and the government should also see that there are long-term impacts of these things. I mean, you become hostage, you're compelled to take those initiatives, and then this, you know, you're caught in a situation where there is no end. And the other thing, I mean, if you see all these steps, how would it, if you analyze, how would it bring peace, or the whatever the larger idea of peace or bringing justice and all that? I guess this is just further escalation, and this is further complicating the conflicts. There's a high time to think that, look, you have to address the structural causes of the conflicts, the disputes, particularly if you talk about the Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, if you shut down all the engagements methods, and you know, you try to, because of your economic might, you try to, you know, silence all those voices. I guess you cannot detach context of the context from the situation. Kashmir, of course, remains, you know, and is a conflict of international stature, a dispute. There's a right time that you need to understand that there is a reason and there is a need to identify, to engage on constructive things, to come up with a solution that is just for the people. Then you can have a broader approach to regional peace, stability, and all those things. Otherwise, such measures would further complicate. I mean, Pakistan has equally reciprocated. I mean, came up with so many decisions equally powerful. And how does this help India particularly when they're talking about all these things? I mean,
especially
see,
without any evidence.
Just one thing. I mean, see, Pakistan recently, I mean, didn't come up out of that Balochistan event, the way the nation was shattered, you know. There is a huge price that we have paid. The way we are, our society, the sections of the society, and many people, civilians have been killed. Yes, you need to understand that you have to, instead of blaming or instead of, you know, creating a war-like situation, you have to come up with certain constructive things, and the senior voices must prevail. These war hysteria, warmongering, it has a very big cost. This region doesn't, I guess.
If the sanity doesn't prevail, I'll come to that point. For your quicker view on that, unfortunately, we are short of time. Your understanding regarding as Pakistan closing the airspace for the Indian-owned and Indian-operated airlines, to what scale it is going to have an impact?
I mean, technically, I don't have those estimates, but what I can say is that, you know, when I mean, you have opened up the space when you come, you have opened up the space for taking measures. Because India came up with 5, 6, 7 points, and then it of course offers a space for Pakistan to take those actions. And I mean, it can be many. You have, of course, the Pakistan must have thought about its impact. I mean, if you are denying somebody from water-like resource which has economic impact, of course, then Pakistan would equally go for those options available to them. So what I'm saying, that these actions could be more in future. It can multiply, but there is need that these warmongering, hysteria, and created
so
by
if the sanity doesn't prevail on the Indian side, do you see any further misadventure happening in terms of?
I personally see that from last 5 to 10 years, the infrastructure, which is heavily reliant on conflicts and, you know, creating division and divisive politics, particularly under BJP the government. This is coming up, you know, it has its own consequences now. That's what I believe, that this was dangerous. The senior voices then was saying that, you know, it's quite difficult to maintain and sustain that. And now you see that the way the entire situation is created, this is sad. This is I don't see it's going to benefit India.
Commodore Abbasi, quickly your take, your closing remarks as to with this escalation. Do you think is there any sort of role or the responsibility lying on the shoulders of the international community or the major players try to help de-escalate the situation, and also specifically impress upon India, if it has got any evidence, it should come up with rather than coming up with a blame game? and such type
That's
of
true.
actions?
I think you asked this question before also. One word, single word in that NSC communique which has come out is very important, national power. National power includes everything. It's your military, your strategic, your everything that you can put in, your diplomatic, all options, no holds bar. So Pakistan has made it very clear, and the international community should read this signal and this word very clearly. They understand. So, and what do if your lifeline is trying to be threatened? What else you do? There's Urdu word tang Ahmad bajang Ahmad. I mean, if you are compelled, you are with your backs to the wall, you fight. So I don't want to sort of say it, but I think it's implied, and it's only to make sure that things should be resolved amicably rather than going to those ultimate limits.
So, Mr. Air Commodore retired Basit Raza, Abbasi senior analyst, thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar, Indian affairs expert. Dr. Kausar, I seek your pardon. Unfortunately, we're short of time. I'll have to end the show right over here. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.